Without seeing your aim, I know that 90% of you will need the first tip I'll give, so I put it at the beginning and not at the end as others do to entice you. If this has helped you, leave a like and a sub. Consider joining our aim coaching if you want specialized help. Thank you very much and Merry Christmas. When looking back at some of your clips, they may not look as impressive as you would like. You can see yourself overflicking and constantly adjusting. To fix this, play pokeball more slowly and supplement it with target switching for speed. This is much more beneficial because when you hold down mouse 1, it makes the scenario more reflex heavy, but when your brain is constantly worried about pressing mouse 1, it becomes focused on when do I press and less on raw flicking. So by holding mouse 1, the brain's only concern becomes to reach the target and no other input is required. To start, practice pokeball in a smooth manner, while target switching is where you can go all out and play purely for speed. To summarize, use pokeball for clean lines, target switching for speed focus, and static for accuracy. So target switching in pokeball is beneficial as an assisting field to static. In our next tip, we'll figure out how to play static for this issue. Alright, so what if you're playing TAC FPS and you see that your starting point is off? You're shooting around the target or maybe even spamming. That's almost always a lack of microadjustment. So the first issue was overflicking. This is a lack of adjusting after those overflicks happen. Microadjustments are one of the most misunderstood yet simplest things to fix. See, through my coaching, I take a look at a lot of static, and I found out that most of you flick very fast and adjust very slow. By doing this, you're essentially relying only on the initial flick, as your brain doesn't have enough time to micro adjust in game. You have the time in Kovaaks, but not in game, probably because the enemy has already moved by the time you try to adjust. That's where correctly handling speed assists us. See, speed is by far one of the most important components of aim, but specifically for static, we're gonna have to control it. As you're fighting in game, it's actually less about accuracy and more about getting to the target quicker than your opponent. And your brain knows this. So if you flick very quickly and then adjust slowly, you're teaching your brain this bad habit. You're essentially adding extra time to reach the target, basically telling your brain, look, I can get us to point A quickly, but point B will take a much longer time. So now you're in game, you flick to the target, and your brain sees this lack of skill in the second flick and thinks, this is as close as he can get me, which is why I start spamming or shooting around the target instead of adjusting before clicking mouse 1. Your brain is just hoping one of the bullets will hit. It's essentially compensating for your lack of ability. So your solution is to consciously flick at the same speed you do your micro adjustment. So if your initial flick is really fast, then your micro adjustment has to be as fast. But most of you cannot do this, so what do? We slow down the entirety of the flick to be the same speed as the micro adjustment. So if your initial flick is moving at 10 miles an hour and your micro adjustment at 5, you make the entire flick 5 miles an hour instead of one part 10 and the other 5. These people that lack adjustments should also focus on playing what I call 100% mode, and this will help you the most. This means that you should aim for 98 to 100% accuracy on all your static runs, even if that means your score takes a hit. Getting in the habit of always ensuring you're on target before hitting mouse 1. This ensures we build a habit of constantly making sure you are on target before clicking, thus building up a habit of clicking on the target and not around it. What if I flick and then have problems with tracking? Well, there are a few solutions, but this is less about the ability to track a target over an extended period of time and more about combining the two. Flicking involves moving from the locked, fast twitch muscles to the slower, relaxed fibers in the fingers and wrists that make tracking possible. But no grip style will solve this problem. What we need to do is instead play target switching that are evasive or have more health, something that forces you to flick and stay on target for longer periods of time. While normal TS relies mainly on the initial flick, scenarios with slightly harder movement or more health will practice this flaw. Over time, your body will get used to flicking and tracking at the same time. People who have this problem, regardless of your game, should also try to play scenarios with movement tracking, as it's often a combination of movement and aiming that hinders their transition. Okay, I looked at my Vox TS run and I'm shaking so much at the end of my flick. 4BK, please fix. Well, this one is going to be pretty short because it's essentially all about speed. As I mentioned in the last one, the flicking part is where you tense and activate the most muscles in your arm to move your mouse faster. And when you stop, you shake. This is because every force requires an opposite or similar force to stop it. We move faster than our body can stop our flick. Think back about how muscles act when they're under a lot of pressure, either by doing a really heavy set or exhausting yourself in the gym. Your muscles actually begin to shake. So the solution is different from the rest because we simply need to slow down our flicks by maybe 5 to 10%. And most importantly, get comfortable in moving faster. This is actually where things like grid shot can be really beneficial. What if I'm just not getting any better? I've followed all your tips and I'm still struggling. Then you need to start over at point 1 and take a step back. I talked about this in my last video, but starting over and considering yourself a beginner might not be such a bad idea. Even if the scenarios feel easy at first, take a look at my videos to learn how to properly VOD review and then re-watch your VODs and you might think otherwise. There's no shame in restarting. You're not reverting your progress, but reworking your much needed fundamentals. So this is part 1 in this series and is mainly about flicking and static. I plan to do a similar one on target switching, dynamic, and much more. If you like this video, do consider subbing, do consider subscribing and joining my Discord. And if you like the way I analyze and break things down and would like more personalized detailed info, do consider joining my aim coaching, as we are able to help a lot of people. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.